Hello, this is Reverend Don Lewis coming to you from beautiful Florida. And today our question comes to us from Breath of Gaia. And Breath of Gaia asks how I feel the human ego affects magic. And actually my answer to this is I think it's more a question of how magic affects the human ego. But before we get into that, I'd like to say a few words about ego by itself. Many people terribly misuse the term ego and treat it as if it meant arrogance and bad behavior. But ego in fact means your sense of self. And though it is certainly possible for a person to have a terribly overdeveloped ego, it is also possible to have a highly underdeveloped sense of ego, and certainly possible and desirable to have a healthy ego. And the goal is to have a healthy ego, a healthy sense of yourself that is neither overdeveloped nor underdeveloped. Because the person who has an underdeveloped sense of ego is no better off than someone who has an overdeveloped one. And very often the people that you perceive as having too much ego actually have wounded or undeveloped egos that are overcompensating. Magic is a path of healing, and it naturally will tend to attract people who have issues of various kinds that need healing. And it makes sense that healing would appeal to those who are in need of it, and ideally when we follow the magical path we get progressively more and more healthy. But there are certainly people running around the magical community who have all kinds of ego problems, but I would have to say that this is part of their healing process. That doesn't necessarily make it any more pleasant to deal with, and I do not feel that that excuses bad behavior. But I would also say that it is a natural stage that many people will go through. And it's been my experience that for many people, as they develop spiritually and psychically, there will come a point where their ego will tend to blow up for a while. And ideally they will work through it, and their teachers and friends will help them to work through it. But it is something that people do seem to encounter. And I, again, often tell people that when you're working with self-healing and self-transformation, the more you do, the more you find. You think you're going to come to a point where there's nothing more to do, but it's actually quite the opposite. The more work you do on yourself, the more sensitive you become to things that are in need of healing and fixing. The more you try to clear energetic blockages, the more blockages you find. It's not that there are more there, it's that you become better at finding them. And it's true in every aspect of self-healing and self-transformation. So I think that we have to acknowledge that the magical path will tend to bring these and other problems to the fore so that they can be healed and dealt with. The problem I think the magical community has is that many branches of it don't encourage people to heal and deal with these things, but rather encourage the bad behavior. And that is something I think that as a group we desperately need to change. We need to recognize that when people do hit this phase, those people who do hit this phase, that it's something that they do in fact need to work through, and that it is not something that should simply be allowed to stay. So those would be my thoughts on the matter. I hope you find them interesting, and until next time, may you blessed be. Hello, this is Reverend Don Lewis, and did you know that I'm also a psychic reader? For over 30 years I have been a psychic reader specializing in tarot and clairvoyance, and if you would like a reading with me, you can set one up, either by phone or by email, by contacting me at donlewishp@aol.com. And until next time, may you blessed be.